So I don't know if you're like me, but it was a complete pain to set up OBS correctly with recording my PS5 gameplay 4K 60 smoothly without issues. It was lagging pretty hard when I was trying to set it up, you know, in the best way possible. I've gone ahead and fixed that, and I'd like to show you guys how to take care of that for yourselves. Let's start off. So there might be a lot going on the screen, but this is my main instance of OBS, and I'm using this to record this video. And you've got the PS5 here in the lower corner that you'll be seeing. And if I open the 4K capture utility, you'll see that the game's running smoothly as well. Which I had no issues there, but I didn't really care for learning or not learning, but it's very simple, this 4K utility, capture utility, compared to OBS. I like the features here, so it's a lot more convenient to stay with this setup. So first thing you're going to want to do is in your main settings, you're going to go to your system, HDMI, make sure HDCP is disabled, so turn it off. That's going to allow you to, first of all, connect to your 4K 60 Pro or other recording device. This tutorial might help or work for other devices, but you know, it depends on the settings you've got there in the system. As far as the issues I was having, I figured out that it had to do with OBS and how it records. So the way the 4K capture utility records, I've noticed, let's see if I can pull this up. Black screen for a moment. Okay. So, okay, perfect. GPU, that's what we want to see. So we'll see if all this runs nicely or not. And then again, given the fact that I'm running 2, I'm not sure if this is going to actually end up working. So I'm going to minimize this for now, since I've got the PS5 here in this corner. Okay. So the issue I was having is with the recording settings. So if you're like most people, maybe you've already looked up a video and you've set up your rate control with variable bitrate or even constant bitrate, and maybe you like to use the preset of max quality. But I found that by going through the Nvenc encoder guide, Nvenc encoder guide, there are some things that might be slightly more optimized as far as the rate control settings. So one thing, in newer versions of OBS, make sure you have game mode on. That should help. This is for streaming, but we're gonna actually go ahead and come down if there's anything else here. No. To recording settings. So this will help you, and this is kind of what helped me kind of get a better sense of some of these things. So this is probably the main issue you're having. And again, sorry for this kind of being lengthy, but I wanted to kind of get a detailed explanation as to why your GPU wasn't working the way, perhaps, because I've actually got somewhat of a beefy boy GPU. I mean, it's not obviously the greatest in the current day and age, but it should be decent enough. So I've kind of figured out the difference between constant quality point recording and CBR, VBR, and lossless. So let's just go ahead and explain those as we go through. Oh, whoops. the settings. So right now, I'm already, yeah, so recording this is going to be kind of it's not going to show the way I want it to, but that's all right. This would be good if I had a second PC to record this, but I guess I can just give you the rundown of what happens, so you might be able to synthesize this yourself. So what we're gonna want to look at, I'm assuming you've set up your other settings, to your liking. I would recommend process priority above normal instead of high per se. If you're also gaming on the same PC, it might help a little bit with stability. And if you've got a good enough CPU, you shouldn't necessarily need more than above normal for OBS to be fine. For your video, I mean, it depends on your quality, but obviously I think you might run into this issue if you have a high-end desktop or laptop and are trying to record 4K 60. Audio, fine. So again, let's get to the main point of the show. Okay, so if you do CBR, you have to crank it pretty low, because I'm already at 80% encode. So normally I'll run down what happens. So if I were to hit record in this instance without having my main, this video recording at the time, I would jump from, it depends on the bit rate, but let's say I dropped it to 40, which I'm already not comfortable doing. I'm not sure I would like the quality once I run it through my video editor and then have to again export it and render it for YouTube and then have it compressed by YouTube again. So it would jump from like 0 to maybe 70s, 80s, maybe even 90s. So it's like not even that great at, maybe 35. 40 and up, it's already, you're gonna have like, here, I'll give you an example. Yeah, encoding overload. So you're gonna have lagging there. Okay. If you go to VBR, which is probably, handy and convenient, you have variable bitrate. So constant bitrate, you target obviously the bitrate is constant. And, I had more to say about that, but kind of went away. It'll probably come back to me in a moment. But in comparison, variable obviously varies. If you have let's say you have a frame that has more detail, more content going on, this is busier than per se, this, where I've just got this portion of the desktop. So variable bitrate would kick in there. The bitrate would go to your minimum if allowed, or if necessary, basically if allowed. Now if your minimum is really high, you're still going to have a generally high quality video, but then say if you start opening a bunch of things up, it's going to be able to accommodate for that with that variable bitrate. And then if you were to basically, no matter how I played with this is what I normally would run. Like say when I was recording my RPCS3 run through of Demon's Souls, which is still in progress. I had about a week of downtime, which I think I'll briefly cover in one of the episodes, where I basically had to install this computer entirely, clean install. And fortunately I had a lot of backup drives where I was able to honestly just reinstall and then just relink certain network drives to have access to my footage and other content and other files. But anyway, that's another story. Getting back to rate control. So constant bitrate is out as far as video encode, because it'll give you that encoding error. And this is with the max quality preset. I'll come back around to that at the end. So this whole video has been under the assumption that you are trying to run it through max quality, which the difference between max quality and any of the other presets is that max quality is, as far as what I know, the only setting that's going to give you 2-pass encoding. And quality, it wouldn't even be an issue, but I'm kind of a stickler, so I still wanted to be able to record in max quality if possible, and I did find out the way. So again, I know this video is getting lengthy, but I really wanted to kind of cover all the bases and really in-depth explain everything that's going on in the background, so that maybe for other setups or other scenarios, this information might be applicable excuse me, for you. So now, obviously, recording in lossless, so the difference there, okay, so just a quick rundown. Constant bitrate, if I wanted to record and not hit the encoding error or cap by maxing out the video encode, I'd have to lower the bitrate so low that I wouldn't really be happy with the quality. So that's out. Variable bitrate, kind of same story, and I just, excuse me, couldn't find a proper setting to make that work. Actually, VBR was probably the most taxing, and I think I'll explain that when I get to constant quality point. I think that's what that stands for. Lossless obviously is going to tax your encoding the least, because what's happening is the footage is just being encoded. So you're just taking the footage raw straight to the destination or the target where you're recording, one of your SSDs or whatever, and the GPU doesn't have to process that. It just has to say, okay, I'm just taking this image as is. I'm literally just, it's opening its eyes and recording, capturing the entirety of your screen. So I was seeing that only go to about 40%. Now, I found the solution by going to CQP. And I actually found it, ironically, at the default setting. At least that's what it did for me. And I found that this, no matter what I really set this to, whether it's 30 or 1, it seemed to float around 70% when I'm recording. Let's say I was recording in this instance, not this kind of a scenario. So this would be just me recording gameplay and probably recording a voiceover at the same time with the Steinberg. Let's see. That would typically be how I record here. Okay, we're back. This menu. So the way, and I think this is I'll break down my understanding of this. The way that VBR, CBR differ from CQP is that, so you're basically saying for the bit rate targets, for the rate, the rate of your bit, the bit rate, that's what rate control is, right? You're saying, hey, target this bit rate. You're ignoring like the image, the quality, and everything that's going on. And for whatever reason, that seems to be more taxing on the encoding process than CQP, which is a constant quality. So the way I interpret that is that constant quality is saying, hey, video encoder, take a look at the image that you're seeing and, capture it. If it's at 4K, capture it at like 4K with, 15 or 20% compression or something like that. Maintain 85% of the image quality. Like let's say you compressed an image, and it's going to do that every frame, right? Whereas for bitrate, I think it's looking at it and say, okay, I don't really care about the quality, but I want you to maintain a certain file size, and you can also vary based on other parameters, which include if the image is more detailed, you can let the file size expand to your maximum bitrate, which would be this. And at the minimum, it's always going to float between these two values, and it'll bottom out at this value, which is, this is what I have, 65,000. So the challenge is in finding the CQP point where that's actually matching that value, and it actually happens to be where I'm at right now, which is 20. I don't know if it's exactly perfect, but through some testing, I found that this is the best way, or this was the best setting. You could maybe lower it a couple notches or increase it if you like. So maybe if you go to 18, you might be at around 100K for the bitrate. If you went to 22, you might be around 50, 45. I'm not sure exactly. Again, I haven't fiddled with this beyond the point of finding where my happy medium was. And oh, by the way, I do recommend MKV recording, because if something goes wrong and your thing crashes, you can just go ahead and the recording will finish and it'll stop where you crashed, and then you can just go and remux your recordings. If you have a decent enough processor, hour footage or half-hour footage would take anywhere between 30 seconds and a minute. So not that long. You could, do obviously multitask while that's going on. Just to get back into that, one little side tip. But you could also record in MP4. And so what I found is that, here, let me open up this. Oh, that's actually not where I want to go. Where am I trying to go? Here. There we go. So again, basically what I had done is I had gone through certain settings. I had increased and decreased this. And so when I set it to 15, which is what's recommended on the website, if you go through here and read through all of this, which might be also beneficial to you, you can find out more about that. Okay, so when I did QP15, I had a half-hour recording. Let's take a look, and wow, 169,000 bits, bitrate, kpbs. That's really high. I mean, you saw this was a 36 gigabyte file for half an hour. So that's about, 71.4, if I'm being more exact, for an hour. That's huge. That's a bit too much. In comparison, what I'm typically getting is maybe 20 gigabyte files, 25. No, sorry. 25 to 33 or 32 per hour, depending on the bitrate. Because I have variable bitrate, so sometimes it would not be as taxed in the bitrate. And so the file size is kind of a formula of your bitrate and your time. So you can look at another video for that, because if I explain that, this might just be a half-hour long video, which I'm glad I spent the time to run through this, but obviously it's a little bit of an investment on your end, but probably, hopefully, likely worth it. So if you do enjoy it, please let me know your thoughts, and consider checking out my other content, which is Demon Souls on PS5 and RPCS3. Both of those series should be coming out. Yeah, the reason besides other reasons for actually using this footage if I want to, I'm not able to see the bitrate when I leave it in MKV. That's just how it is. So you can see that by remuxing it. Okay, so yeah. Okay, so just to run through this again. Oh, sorry. No, just to touch on one last detail. If you don't really want to mess with any of this, you can just drop this down to quality or another setting that you like. I found that by playing with these, they vary between... Most of these hover between 40 and 60% on the video encode. Actually, max performance is lower, maybe like 35, 40. Performance is like 40 to 45. Quality is, I think, drops it down to like 60 to 80. I'm not sure. It was roughly in that range. That's under, you know, variable or constant bitrate. If you went lossless, I didn't quite test that. But basically, I found that CQP at 20 is roughly equivalent to VBR of 65 to 100 for me. That's not perfect, but just to give you a few examples, this is another QP15 clip. It's 200 megabytes, roughly thereabout. It's 10 seconds long, so you can project that out to a minute. If this was 6 times as long, which would be 60 seconds, 1 minute, that would be 1200 megabytes, right? I'm usually good at math. I mean, I have a degree that incorporates math, but on the spot, I guess I'm like, what? So yeah, same bit rate. Another one, QP20. Also, I think 10 seconds. 85 megabytes. So that's a reduction of more than 50%. And look at the bitrate, 65K. This one, I think it was the first test one I did, and I wasn't sure, but I'm pretty sure I set it to QPC20. I mean, sorry, CQP20, because I don't think I fiddled with the slider. And it was like 80K, but it had a little bit more going on in it. So... you know, had some effects and motion, whereas this one was, I think, me just standing. Or, yeah, I had the video paused for like 4 seconds, so 30% of the video was not even in motion, so that accounts for that. So yeah, that... Oh, did I even clarify the last thing I wanted to? Okay, quality control level. So it works kind of in a weird way. So you can take 20 as a, you know, between 60 and 80,000 bits per, yeah, kilobits per second. Roughly as an estimate, if you slide it down to 30, you're going to decrease your quality and decrease your file size. But, you know, there's a, oh, why am I hitting? Okay. Overload. I don't know why all of a sudden it started overloading. Anyway, I guess I had some sort of process happening in that moment. Maybe it was with those videos open. Anyway, what was I saying? QP20. So if you slide it to 30, gosh, I'm so sorry for the length of this video, but hopefully it covers every little detail of this. You're gonna decrease the quality, decrease your file size. I don't know exactly the bit rate, but you can play with it and figure out. If you drop it to 1, that's gonna be pretty much as close to lossless as you can get. So basically it's saying quality point, hold it at 1, which is essentially almost, or maybe it is about lossless. Whereas 20 is like saying, hey, reduce it by, I don't know if it's actually a percent. Obviously, it probably scales differently or has a different function than just some sort of linear thing. But, or maybe it's linear, I don't know. But, you know, let's say at 20, it reduces it by 35% file size. Or sorry, no, 20, just based on the file size, it probably reduces it by like 60 or 80%. From lossless, rough estimate, and gives you a quality that's like, I don't know, 85-90% maybe. So it's a really nice happy medium. Okay, cool. I will stop the video there because we're 25 minutes in, but I hope that covered everything. Thank you guys. Enjoy. Peace. Real quick, I'm going to explain my interpretation of the reason to use max quality and basically the whole basis for why I even recorded this video. I'm doing this after the fact, but I'll insert it maybe in the beginning somewhere nicely. Anyway, so my interpretation of max quality and why I wanted to so heavily emphasize keeping this for my recording is that you have 2-pass encoding. And so basically the way that works is it produces a nicer quality image. That's your end result. But the way that it does that and the way that it interacts with CQP versus the other rate control methods ends up being the most efficient with CQP and less efficient with VBR and CBR, which is what ends up maxing out your video encode, at least in my scenario. I don't know if I have an issue or something, but this video was my resolution to that. Lossless, again, you're not going to have that because you're not having to encode besides the actual recording of lossless quality. So that's why it doesn't eat too much encoding. So what 2-pass does is it basically takes 1 pass and basically essentially logs the information of each frame, and then obviously you have a video with all the information, and then through the 2nd pass it says, okay, how do I need to encode this to maximize the quality? And essentially it does that. So it'll maximize the quality based on other settings you have, and so for whatever reason it sees constant quality point. Probably the way I interpret it is, okay, it's saying, hey, keep this. If you watch the rest of the video, maybe what I said then will make more sense now. If you watch, record and encode what you're seeing. That's what you're telling the encoder, and you're doing it based on what you see. So it's saying whatever quality, 1080p, 1440, 4K, 8K image quality video, and maintain this quality. I think it's easier for it to do that because it just says, okay, I see this quality, maintain it at a certain compression or only losing certain amount with CQP. With the variable and other bit and with the variable and constant bit rate, it just has a harder time because it's targeting the bit rate rather than the quality. So the quality might slightly fluctuate to meet that bit rate restriction, or if it's wide enough the range, it might not fluctuate that much at all, but it just is kind of a sloppier way to control the bit rate. So that's why it struggles. That's my interpretation of that. Okay, wrapping it up. Thank you. Peace.